stop in just to yell at you?
Yeah.
Yep, yeah.
To yell at Dan.
But I broke it up by saying, Jeff, shouldn't we see something that you brought up in public comment?
Yeah.
He said, we're not allowed to talk about stuff before we shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know, but, oh well.
Test.
You know, you get one.
Unfortunately, it's usually more than one.
So, Jeff, we are streaming now. I just want to see if we're live. Oh God, I gotta turn that microphone
Dylan
on.
coming tonight?
I think so. Well, I don't want that. I want YouTube.
He got that pillow sometime.
He's a busy guy.
Happy is.
YouTube.
I was in the emergency department and I was about to suture somebody's leg, and then I needed a refresher, so I had to go on YouTube and search how to suture. Watch that, suture the leg. A lot of those.
Yeah, had to watch YouTube first.
Village. Shit. Come on, YouTube.
I was in the emergency department and I was about to suture somebody's leg,
Oh,
and
we
then
heard
I
you.
needed a refresher, so I had to go on YouTube and search how to suture. Watch that, suture the leg. A lot of those. Hello, I'm Sab. Today I've been asked to scroll through and share.
It's like 120 or something.
It says live. Oh, yep. We're on.
My dad has mine.
Microphone.
What's that?
You gotta sing the opening song.
No. I don't sing it. Do I have to sit on the hot seat though?
No, well, what, they'll come. Sean do all the talk. Make sure you have all the-
Pickup truck at work.
Sean will- Sean will do it.
That's like using a
Jeff,
phone. Okay, but
Sean can
See,
give
mine's
you-
kind of unlimited. Mine's just a storage. I make it for storage.
You're hearing Sean?
Yes.
You gotta talk really loud for me and for Ralph. Ralph and I went to the same party.
Yeah, okay. Oil change.
2 minutes. And we're live. Oh, I'm here for. Uh-oh. Oh, I don't want that way. There's Dan. There's Mario. Mario, your head's shining. Mike. Gotta get Sean.
It's light from there.
There we go. Guys, did you see the changes to the minutes? They're highlighted in yellow. You want me to call Dylan?
He's all quorum.
Maybe he's bringing beer.
This is gonna work. Is this the one?
Hey, do we have planning commission tonight?
Yes.
Alright, I'll be over there shortly.
Okay, thanks, Dylan. Bye. No, I was calling about the cupcake that you was with.
Sometimes you just forget.
According to my wife, that's all the time for me.
I just don't listen.
Got my ringer off. I thought it was funny. Do we have plan commission?
All right, I got 6 o'clock. I'll call the village board and planning commission meeting to order. Everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call and open meeting law compliance check.
President Jeff Millies,
Here.
Trustee Jay Pecca,
Here.
Trustee Gary Finch.
Here.
Note for the record that Trustee Dylan Newman is on his way, so that is a quorum of your village board. And then for Plan Commission, we have President Jeff Millies.
Yes.
We have Commissioner Dan Nowak,
Here.
Commissioner Mario Rinaldi,
Here.
Commissioner Michael Alex.
Here.
Mr. President, there is a quorum of your village board also.
Notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing will be held by the Village of Vernon Plan Commission and Village Board on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Village Hall located at W249 S8910 Center Drive, Big Bend, Wisconsin, to consider a conditional use permit request for the Heaven City development by Ralph Hibbard, VNT number 209099710, to amend the existing conditional use permit for a multi-family legal non-conforming use. The amendment would allow the conversion of an existing commercial building on a property to a single-family home for the property manager. The property is described as follows. Part of Lot 2, Certified Survey Map number 9385, Volume 85, page 222, located in part of the northwest quarter and the southwest quarter of Section 19, T5N R19E, Village of Vernon. More specifically, the property is located at South 91 West 27850 West National Avenue. Sean, would you like to give an update here? And
Sure. Karen, would you mind flipping over to the projector and the overhead?
There we go.
Here's the Heaven City property. Essentially, it's a 32.25 acres. It has a storied past, essentially. The property itself just sits adjacent to the Fox River. You can see there's a bunch of wetland and environmental corridor and even floodplain in there. Over the years, there was a few residential units that were developed on the northeast corner that essentially are off of Lakeside Drive, which is part of the Hidden Lake subdivision. The property itself has a tavern, now vacant restaurant, retail store, 18 apartments in 3 buildings, a detached garage, and a couple of pavilions as well. There were several CUPs, conditional use permits, over the years that were administered by Waukesha County with input from the then town of Vernon that were modified. The last time we took a look at this was in 2020 when we brought it under a village conditional use permit after we had our own zoning. And the area of the conditional use was essentially reduced, didn't encompass the entire property anymore. It was just limited to essentially the areas with the buildings and the paved area. So it's reduced down to 16.2 acres in size. That same year, we also approved a site plan of operation for the old restaurant building for Milwaukee Auction House. The building itself is about 4,100 square feet. What the petitioner is asking now essentially is to reuse that building again as a single-family home for an on-site property manager for a family member. The property, or at least this portion of the property, is Zone B2. That accessory dwelling units associated with a business are permitted uses in the B2 zoning district, so there's no problem there. The only reason that this has come before us is that the last time the conditional use permit was modified in 2020, there was a condition put on it that required any increase in density or expansion of residential units required modification of the conditional use permit. So that's what's being asked for tonight. The parking requirements obviously are going to reduce on the property if this is used as a single-family home, so there's no concern there. All other conditions of the conditional use permit would remain. This would have to pass building inspection and fire inspection as well. So I don't have any concerns with it, but it is a public hearing. It is an amendment to the conditional use permit.
is there any public who'd like to make any comments? Seeing no public wanting to comment.
Do you want to ask Ralph if Sean covered everything?
Mr. Hibbert, did Sean cover everything correctly?
Well, the only thing I would say is, you know, we're reducing the amount of stress on the property. We've got one well. We're doing, and my nephew is going to be the property manager eventually, and he loves the place. He's already done a lot of improvements to the restaurant building, and we're bringing it back, and, you know, I think we're reducing traffic on the property and everything else. It's primarily a rental. So, and I think this is behooving to everybody here, because, I mean, it's neighbors and everything. It's less of everything. No more, you know, no more restaurants. So.
I do miss the restaurants.
And Ralph, you had a real difficult time, you had a real difficult time trying to even get someone to run that restaurant, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, the restaurant business is a tough business, and after COVID, it just really changed a lot. So, and I think there's enough restaurants already in McGuanago area to not have another one. It's a shame, but, you know, it's the way it goes, and this will be a nice fix for it. It'll bring it back to the original building that it was supposed to be.
Was this originally a house when it was first built?
Yes, it was built in 1917 as a single-family residence for a guy named Schuster, who had a tobacco company, and he had a mansion on about 30th and Wells, and this was his summer property. So we're going to bring it back a little bit.
All right, if there's no other public comments,
You want to go check Plan Commission and Board?
Plan Commission, Village Board, gives you any comments?
Dan's got one.
Since we have a reduction in the need for parking, can we reduce the impervious surface on this property?
How would you do that?
I mean,
No.
Take out as,
here's the thing about the conditional use process is that all the conditions that you impose essentially have to be reasonable and based on substantial evidence. And so what about what he's proposing would merit that? I mean, that would be nice to have, and if he's willing to do it, that'd be nice. I don't know, that might be something we'd have to ask the village attorney about. I don't know if we can impose that condition or not. Because it doesn't remedy anything that
Not
he's...
reasonable?
Well, it's not reasonable in the fact that what he's proposing is a single-family home, and he's reducing the use of the property. I get what you're saying, but that condition has nothing to do with essentially the use of the property.
If we can't impose a condition now, we never will be able to. There's a big area there, asphalt that goes down to the dumpster that was used for the restaurant, and we need that, and
Yeah.
Can I comment?
yeah.
Yeah, and so the dumpster area, like, if that were removed, where would the dumpster area go? Like, that is, even though there isn't a restaurant there, there's still 18 tenants in a bar that still all use that dumpster area.
They gotta walk a long ways to get there, don't they?
Yeah, but they also don't want the smell of a dumpster right next to them when it's 90 degrees and super hot outside. It is not a pleasant smelling thing.
Dan, I guess I'll leave it with, I don't know if that condition can be imposed or not without.
Yeah.
So if you have a mind to push for that, I would recommend we run it past the village attorney, and table the public hearing if that's the way you want to go. That's just my recommendation. You obviously can do whatever you want.
Planning Commission, any other comments? Village Board? Hearing no other comments, I'll close the public hearing. Let's see, we need to...
no, we do the next public hearing.
Yeah, next public hearing. Notice is hereby given. A joint public hearing will be held by the Village of Vernon Planning Commission and Village Board on Wednesday, March 12th, immediately after 6 p.m. at the Village Hall located at W249 S8910 Center Drive, Big Bend, Wisconsin, to consider amendments to the zoning ordinance related to adding bars and taverns to certain industrial districts in the zoning use matrix. Sean?
Yeah, so we talked about this conceptually last meeting, and our current ordinance, our current zoning ordinance doesn't have bar or tavern currently listed as a permitted or conditional use. You have my staff report from last time. I won't go over the details again, but all we've done essentially to bring it back was to add bar or tavern under the section in the matrix where it's retail or customer service establishments of a restrictive nature as identified below. Same places that restaurants are identified. And we have it as a permitted use, the B2, B3, B4, BP, and then the I1 industrial district, which is essentially the same as a restaurant, except that restaurant is also allowed in the B1, the most restrictive, sort of the neighborhood-oriented business district. Again, I talked about this last time. We don't have any property that's currently zoned B1 in the village, so it doesn't necessarily matter today, but I wanted to keep it to at least the more intensive business districts. As these come forward, we do have discretion in terms of a site plan of operation to look at hours of operation and outdoor spaces and other things as well. So we have some control over it, even if we keep it a permitted use.
Okay, are there any public comments or, did Sean forget anything?
No.
Okay. Plan Commission? Any comments?
Why are we including industrial properties?
Only for consistency because all the other things are also allowed. So industrial essentially allows everything that's in the business districts. So restaurants are allowed in industrial, most of those service and retail uses are also allowed. So we could exclude it, but it would be an anomaly to exclude it from those areas because that's all, again, just for consistency purposes.
Is the only industrial we have is where Hydro-X or Miller, that's the only industrial?
I think so. Off the top of my head, that's all that there is for now. There's also no BP or B4, I don't think, that are currently zoned.
Right.
All of our zoning is B2 and B3, and then, again, just very limited I1 industrial.
Yeah, okay.
So, Dan, it might be something we look at in the future to strip them all out of there, but for now, for consistency purposes, I left it.
Sean, do we have a definition for entertainment venue? Or is that kind of on a case-by-case basis to determine?
Entertainment venue? Well, we have event barn that's defined as a conditional use. When we talked about the entertainment, is that the phrase I used in my staff report?
It came out of like movie theater / arcade.
Yeah, it was theaters, dance halls, arcades, video game parlors, and other amusement places. So there wasn't, we don't define, we list those as permitted uses.
It just sounds questionable as a entertainment venue.
Right, yeah.
Village Board, you guys have any comments, questions, concerns? Anybody else have any?
Sean, are we including the other potential zoning amendments here?
I brought it up last time, but nobody seemed to push any of those for changes. The only change we brought for public hearing right now was this bar and tavern being added. Those are still on my list eventually to make updates, but I wasn't directed to do those.
Any other public comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Move on to discussion and possible action on the request from applicant Ralph Hibbard for the properties identified by tax key number VNT 209099710 to amend the existing conditional use permit for a multifamily legal nonconforming use. The amendment would allow for conversation of the existing commercial building on the property to a single-family home for a property manager based upon the public hearing held at 6 p.m. Discussion and possible action by the Village Planning Commission to the Village Board. Planning Commission. Looking for an approval.
You've heard my comments, and the only thing I'd like to see is a reduction in impervious areas, but if that's not possible, I don't know.
I think they'd be,
I don't know if it's not possible, I just,
Leaving it the way it is is about what we know.
eventually it'll go away when it needs to be re-blacktop or worked on, they'll probably not spend the money.
the other thing is that,
At some point, I'm assuming that somebody's gonna have to redo that intersection, and at that point, something's probably gonna have to be done with both driveways, because there's two there, and to make that work out with a intersection is gonna be difficult, so I'm assuming some repaving is going to be done in the, changing around of the parking structure, and at that point, stuff could be removed at some point, so.
there's also the potential for that to be, it may not be used as a single-family home forever. If somebody
Yeah,
comes
and that
along and
too.
wants to actually run a business out of it, again, then you have space. It's a unique property with a bunch of eclectic uses, so I would, it's got future with something.
And you do have a good point there, yeah, it might not always be that way, so.
And our problem here is just the opposite. Normally, we don't have people have non-pervious soil. It's all, reclaimed asphalt or, something like that.
We need a motion to recommend a recommendation to the board.
Motion with approval of the conditional use of site plan of operation request.
I will make that motion.
With the conditions as stated by the planner, dated 12th of March, 2025.
Motion made by trustee Commissioner Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mario. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Village Board. Is there a motion to concur with Plan Commission?
I'll make the motion to concur with the planning commission.
Motion made by trustee Finch,
I'll second.
second by trustee Pecca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
So, Sean, does Ralph need to get hold of Vince, or?
Well, we'll have to amend the
Oh,
conditional
that's
use
right,
permit, so we have to have the document has to be recorded, and then,
Okay,
and then you
yeah.
can talk to them.
Ralph, we have a little bit of paperwork to do, but as soon as we get that done, we'll send it over to you, and
Be good to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
you can go out to dinner now. And I'll be there shortly. No.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, moving on to discussion and possible action to consider amendments to the zoning ordinance related to adding bars and taverns to certain business and industrial districts in the zoning use matrix. Thank you. So, Planning Commission, I guess we're kind of looking for what direction for staff to prepare draft amendments to the zoning ordinance with respect to allowing the bars and taverns and entertainment venues in the business zoning districts that we discussed.
Yeah, to essentially approve the changes to the matrix.
So that's all their motion has to state, Sean? If they choose to adopt it?
Yeah, it would be to approve the proposed changes allowing bars or taverns as a permitted use in the B2, B3, B4, BP, and I1 districts.
Okay.
Is there a motion from Planning Commission?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by trustee Commissioner Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Alex. Any further discussion?
When would this go into effect, Sean?
As soon as the ordinance is signed
And posted. Probably tomorrow. Unless you want me not to post it right away, Dan.
Well, I'm concerned about the property probably Mr. Smith is looking at, if this goes through, his would be a permitted use by right when the zoning changes.
So, yeah, so he would be able to do the restaurant portion, the entertainment portion, and then the bar portion. It would all be permitted use.
I'll get into this later, I guess I would rather see that as a conditional use.
You'd rather see which is a conditional use of that?
Bars and restaurants in B2 or B1 or whatever.
Right, so if we make something a conditional use, we'd have to have a reason, and like, what conditions would we put on it? So we'd have to write some conditions that would apply to any bar or tavern, so
But
what,
this will be a permitted use.
right, what I'm saying is that if we have a conditional use, and we put a conditional use in the code, we have to have a series of conditions that go along with it as to why we made it a conditional use, right? So I couldn't think of any good ones that couldn't be handled outside of site plan of operation for a bar or tavern versus a
Just taking that
restaurant.
property into consideration, it's set back way back. you
But it
know,
would be
from the
for any,
highway.
would it be for any property, not just that one?
Well, but we're gonna, you can deal with this later when we get to it.
Okay, well, but if you, no, I don't wanna dismiss what you're saying. If you think bars or taverns should be conditional uses,
It's gonna be close to a new subdivision that we just approved, or in the process.
it will be, right, the Cardinal Ridge subdivision that's to the
Oh.
south, right?
I'm sure there's probably certain conditions that I'd like to see on that.
Yeah, so he'll come in for a site plan of operation, and he'll say, potentially, well, I wanna do some outdoor areas, and we may say, no, doesn't make sense because of the neighbors to the south, and we have the ability to do that through site plan of operation. So we could say no outdoor anything, hours are limited to, you have to close down by a certain time. We can do all that without a conditional use permit. I just don't know what conditions we'd add on to a conditional use permit versus site plan of operation in this case. That's why I kept it as permitted use.
All right.
So we'll look at those things carefully, for sure.
So
But,
Sean, is this like this particular thing that I'm opening is like a brand new thing for Vernon? This is something new that we're, going forward. This might happen, somebody else might come in and decide they want to have the same situation. I
right.
guess I'm kind of like the guinea pig.
Well, I mean, we've had bars or taverns, and in fact, the guy that was just in has a tavern on his property.
Right.
And it was grandfathered in, it was legal non-conforming, it's got a conditional use on it, because it's legal non-conforming, not because it's a tavern necessarily. So I think that's Dan's concern, is not because people would be golfing inside
Sure.
or eating food, it's because they'd be serving alcohol and the residences are to the south. That building already is there though, so he's not gonna move the building away, he's not gonna do anything else, so it is what it is. That building is in its location, and so we have to look at the outdoor stuff, we have to look at hours of operation. Maybe extra landscaping might be required, but we can do all those with the
Okay.
site plan of operation.
And also, I think we found, with the Cedello property, we have a little bit more control, because if people have to change their zoning, we don't have the same restrictions that we do for conditional use. So if we say, well, we see some properties that, current zoning, we want to put a conditional use requirement on it, we don't have the same authority as we do for zoning. Zoning, correct, Sean? Where this is limiting it to business districts, right?
Right, he needs a rezoning as well, so
Right.
there's teeth that come with that.
Yeah, so the rezone process is another one of those oversights to say, hey, this is a non-starter at the rezone process, as opposed to,
Right, right now we're looking village-wide, when he comes in, and he's in tonight for a comp plan amendment, which is coming up, but he does need the rezone, he does need a site plan of operation, so there's still no guarantees, even if the comprehensive plan is amended for business, at this point, it still has to go through the process of the rezone and site plan of operation. So, I just want to make it clear that we're going to be looking carefully at the site. I think that's Dan's point.
Any further discussion? It's been a motion and second.
At the board level? I know
No,
at the plan,
commission.
okay, yep.
All right, let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Village Board, is there a motion to concur?
Make a motion to
Motion
concur.
Motion made by trustee Finch, second by trustee Pecca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes unanimously. Discussion and possible action for Plan Commission to consider Resolution 2025-01-8, Plan Commission Resolution to recommend an amendment to the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map from the educational and institutional category to the commercial category for the property at South 90 West 27455 National Avenue, Waquanago, Wisconsin, VNT number 208-999-0001, excluding the environmentally sensitive areas as mapped pursuant to applicable Wisconsin statutes. John?
Yeah, so the property in question, which we were just kind of talking about as well, is up here. This is a former church. It's a 2.47 acre property. Again, the comprehensive plan currently has a plan as educational institutional because it was a church. The church is no longer there. I guess the question is, will it ever be a church again or not? We don't know, but we do have somebody that's interested in opening a business there, which is a combination golf simulator, restaurant / bar. The first step in the process is the comprehensive plan amendment, because if it's not changed to a commercial designation, none of that matters. So, you know, following the comp plan amendment, you would need a rezoning. Because the bar tavern was just made a permitted use, he will not need a conditional use, but he'll also need a site plan of operation, which will look at the details compared to the surroundings. The comprehensive plan itself has the two properties to the west and northwest as planned for commercial. This is Rev Motorsports in the Midway Market. This is currently a single-family home that's zoned residential, but it is planned long-term for commercial use. So at some point, someone could come along and ask for that property to be rezoned to commercial, and that would be okay. Looking at the context, and these are the storage units that are in the village of Waquanago. As was mentioned previously, to the south, this is a up-and-coming subdivision, Cardinal Ridge, that's being developed. To the east is a CSM for a couple of lots with single-family homes on it. There is a bit of a buffer here to the east with the wetlands, and there's some vegetation. There's also some vegetation to the south. I do have some images in my... So this is in the parking lot looking north toward the home, and you can see there is some existing vegetation, but nothing that's directly, to the north. However, this did operate as a church, so it did get, traffic coming and going as a church without additional buffers. So that'll be something to think about as, as we move forward, whether or not additional landscaping is required. This is to the west. This is actually looking to the east across those wetlands, where there's a couple homes going to be back there, and there's some vegetation. And then this is looking to the south to the new Cardinal Ridge subdivision, and you can see there is also some existing buffer there as well. So personally, I think it's a good fit for a change to commercial. Again, the primary reason being is that the current comprehensive plan category really only looks at institutional uses, and the chance of it being another church, or who knows. This could sit vacant for a long time if it's not changed over to a commercial use. What's in front of the Plan Commission tonight only is essentially a resolution to pass this change off to the village board to hold a public hearing, which requires a Class 1 30-day notice, and then the village board, if they choose to accept the Plan Commission's recommendation, would adopt it through an ordinance as well. So that has to happen. That has to be completed before the applicant can move any further going forward. So that's all I got, Jeff.
So do we need a motion to approve just resolution or set a public hearing date?
For both.
Okay. And that's just by Plan Commission at this time?
Right, just Plan Commission.
I'll make the motion for that extent.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion?
Did Mario second that?
Yes. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And then the public hearing date, what date, Dan?
Is it 30 days?
It's gotta have a 30-day notice.
So the next plan commission meeting?
Is that possible?
Or that's not gonna,
Oh, it's less.
17th.
can you get it out before?
Our next plan commission meeting is the 9th.
That
I
wouldn't
was-
work.
No.
It could be the next board meeting if the plan commission wanted to attend the public hearing.
April 17th would be the next board, I could notice it for that. The 17th of April.
I
And the-
thought wasn't there already a public hearing on the 17th?
No.
And the plan commission doesn't necessarily have to be part of the public hearing unless they want to. You've already made your recommendation through resolution, now it's up to the board to hear the public if they show up and
Yeah,
adopt.
so I guess we could just do it at the board meeting. You guys don't have to show up if you don't want to.
15th or 16th, what day?
17th. What time, Jeff? Do you want to do it before 6? Or do you want to do it at 6? I just need to know for the,
Why don't we just do it at 6 o'clock and the board meeting will immediately follow after
okay.
that.
Does the plan commission need to do that by motion? Set the date?
I think the important motion was just the resolution.
Okay.
I don't think the date is.
We can make another motion on the date. Is there a motion to approve the date of April 17th at 6 PM for the public hearing?
Board level or?
Plan commission level, right?
It's for the board.
For the board.
Oh, for the board.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by trustee Newman, second by trustee Pecca.
Oh, it's got to come from plan commission.
You can't do it.
Oh, I thought you said it was board
It's
level.
going to the
It's
board.
going to the board.
Okay.
The resolution you
I do
adopted.
either way. so-
Yeah.
you go.
I got your first. You just need a second from plan commission.
All right, need a second from plan commission.
I'll second.
Second by Michael Alex. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, discussion and possible action on a conceptual review of a single-family condo plat for VNT 2155997 and VNT 21569980003. Alex Homestead LLC / MGGA Holdings LLC Development located at South 10110 West 23450 County Line Road, Waterford, Wisconsin. Michael Alex.
Mike, do you want me to show the overhead or your concept?
You can show the concept, and actually I printed off a copy too, just because the scan was a little bit sketchy. I figured this might be.
So I don't have a review of this yet, but I do have a couple comments and so on. Again, it's just conceptual.
You guys all have this in your packets, but it's just, it looks a little greeny in mine.
It's here.
So, we moved into the property in 2019, obviously established residency first and then established the event barn in the buildings in 2020, did the site improvements for that and have been operating and living there since. Since that time, it was kind of always the dream that we would be able to make this kind of our homestead, hence the name that we gave it for the LLC that purchased it. The MGGA part of it, Michael George and George Alex is my dad. He's not able to be here, but he's probably watching on YouTube. He's in Indiana, actually, with my oldest son playing basketball. So the purpose of the development would essentially be to take the outer perimeter of our property, the 120 acres, and create lots within that buildable area. For simplicity's sake, it condos out the space. Everybody hears condo and they think of vertical building in a downtown scenario. Essentially what this does is it creates horizontal units. So to everybody else it might look like a subdivision, but just for the land holding of it, it's considered a condo plat. So what we would like to do We have 6 kids. My wife is thinking that we could probably get them all to stay there if we can lure them in with some land, so that's why we have a total of 8 parcels. The first of which is our existing parcel. It gets a little bit tricky in understanding. We have the event barn conditional use, we have the bed and breakfast conditional use. Requirement of that lot would be that it's a minimum of 20 acres and that it remains in that AD 10 zoning. The remaining parcels, we would most likely be looking to rezone to RRD 5 to be able to create kind of a conservancy style development that we call it in our code. The first of which would be the bubbled area in yellow. That's the southeast corner closest to where our property meets County Line and Halverson Road. That would be my parents' home, and Mario, you're gonna love this. They're gonna build a barn dominium.
They're gonna build what, Mike?
A barn dominium, he likes that term. Kind of came up in that ADU type of discussion. So that would be the first phase. That phase, it would just come right off of the existing drive, with subsequent phases happening. My oldest, as I mentioned, is 15, so I don't see that happening for another 10 to 15 years. Our goal is to keep that ag land as long as it doesn't get developed. But this would at least set kind of the rest of the development in order, so we know where we can position that first building and what type of infrastructure improvements we need to make. I'll let you guys kind of digest that, think of any questions. I've got kind of a summary of what we're looking for, just because I'm a list guy.
Yes, sir.
So this kind of bullets out a couple of things, and I'll say this is a conceptual review, so I wanted to thank Jeff for President Millies for allowing it to be heard, and also Sean for putting it up. As a developer, as the developer, it's kind of, you can get so far with staff, but then staff kind of says, well, we got to see what the rest of everybody thinks of it on different aspects of it. That allows us to do the due diligence that we need to answer all of your questions. You might have questions that we haven't thought of, and vice versa. So that's kind of what stage of the process we're at. But again, this just summarizes creation of that conservancy style cluster development, that developer's lot that I mentioned, which is our existing home. Then lot 2 is that southeast corner. The second phase of development would kick in with the development, any lots beyond lot 2. So I'm not sure which lot the first kid would like to build on, so they're just numbered sequentially where I would assume that they would want to be, but could be any of those existing lots. Phase 3 would kick in when the resulting in a total of 5 lots. So one of the things that is the big question is the access requirements. Obviously, it doesn't have street frontage, which is one thing that Sean and I talked about, which is why that condo plat approach is what we're looking at here. So any internal access or roads is still the property of the condo association, so it's not anything that's going to be added to kind of the DPW workload. Our initial plan would be for the lot 2 development to just require a residential driveway. And then once we would build 2 additional lots beyond that, that's when that next phase to have your, what you would consider a road to be established. Understanding that increased density would require that. Those reasons for the phase construction, again, the ability to maintain as much ag land as possible, ability to limit the infrastructure requirements based on density, and then understanding that it's a 10 to 20 year time frame for lots 3 through 8 allows us the flexibility to be able to develop those in the future, but still plan for it in the short term here. Again, what we're asking for, the rezone, is something that we can talk about, similar to what was proposed kind of kitty corner from us, that Castle Road development. They asked for that RRD 5. I think that would be kind of appropriate for this area as well. I can go over why I think that as well. That condo plat approval with, and I don't know, would it officially be a PUD as well, Sean, or just the condo plat?
We wouldn't have to do a PUD.
Okay. And then again, that phase development plan to allow phase 1 to be creation of lot 1 and 2. And then I don't know what type of flexibility we have as far as just limiting further development or putting some type of language in to allow that phase development. You might have seen in there I did have a wetland delineation report done for that lot 2. That was done about 6 months ago when I started talking with Sean. Since then, my grandma that my parents cared for has passed just 2 weeks ago, so that kind of ramped up. Hey, they're 68, my parents, and they want to build sooner rather than later. So that's why we're kind of kicking into high gear to see what we can do to get that lot 2 built out. Couple of considerations for that lot 1, the developer's lot. Again, I wanted this plan so that we're not slicing and dicing things up and then we figure out that we don't have the ability to make the other improvements we would like to see. We hear it all the time, the waiver to allow for additional full building construction as well as a new animal barn. So if you look at that picture that I showed you, or the Albertson House Development Plan that I handed out, on the left-hand side you see kind of I call it a reddish rectangle. Something in that general area would be what I'm hoping to be able to put a pole barn someday. I would request a waiver for up to a 5,000 square foot building for that, as well as any accessory buildings over 2 would require a similar waiver. I put together an overhead to show what existing buildings are there, as well as kind of a breakdown of what that lot coverage ratio would be based on a 30-acre lot 1.
Mike, did you say lot 1 is 30 acres? Where it says pasture land?
Yeah, so lot 1 includes, so pasture land is that section of lot 1. So lot 1 is actually like a orange
The orange
type
box.
of line.
Yeah, the orange box.
The orange box is kind of split up into what I foresee that ag land becoming. So there's tillable, flower field, and then pasture land.
And the existing,
As well as the existing operations
event
in-house.
barn, yeah.
Correct. So once you boil all that down, our lot coverage ratio comes to about 1.138%. I have the asterisk in there because we do have carve-outs for things considered rural structures, which we could make the argument that, you know, those asterisk items would be considered rural structures, as well as the animal shelter could be deemed a farm building. I don't know. I think the easier and cleaner way is just to, you know, go through the waiver process, understanding the overall development. For those of you familiar with the Mukwonago area, Agape Agrihood is kind of a model I looked at for how this works and is it possible. In that scenario, it's all separate, you know, owners that share things like common amenities of garden area and a barn space. In ours, hopefully, it would just be our family that would do that, but kind of that same model. So I did a lot of talking. I don't know, Sean,
yeah,
if you can.
I'll be brief. Just a few comments. One is the property is currently zoned AD10, looking for a rezone to RRD5. The comprehensive plan allows that rezoning. Essentially, 1 unit per 5 acres is the max density. That's what RRD5 would get him. So it's a 1 unit per 5 acres. The wetlands and the floodplains need to be excluded from the calculation. So it's really just the developable land that he can use for the calculation of those units. The condo plat itself, again, just to reiterate so everyone's clear, this is be one lot, and then everything else would be another lot, and then each of these different, numbers 2 through 8 are different condo units within the one lot. In order to create that new lot, it has to have at least 66 feet of frontage on a public road, so it's gotta be a public road at least to get to that property. So I don't know what that little square is anymore. I don't remember what that was.
I think that's just maybe the offset from,
Yeah, so maybe it's 30, it was 33 feet or
33
so.
feet
It's
from
got,
center
it's gotta be brought in 66 feet as a public road, so this new lot has access to it. And then, again, a residential driveway off of it for lot 2, or unit 2, I'm sorry, is perfectly fine. What I haven't researched yet or looked at though is how many other units we'd be able to put on it without bringing it up to public road standards. So you said you'd like to get 2 on driveways, and the third one would trigger the not a public road, but a private road built to public road standards. I don't, we have to look at the number, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. And then I just wanted to reiterate that our zoning ordinance only, for residential properties, really only allows one principal unit, one principal structure, essentially, for all, like, if you have a 1 acre lot, you can only do one residence on it. The reason he can do a condo or multiple condo units on a single lot is because the ordinance allows it. It essentially allows multiple principal buildings in the ag district, the business district, manufacturing, public institutional, multifamily, and condo lots. So this is permitted, provided it meets the density requirements, lot frontage requirements, et cetera. So.
Do we have to worry about any type of retention ponds for runoff and stuff then too, or?
Yep. So that would have to be, the county will review the full plan. Really anything that's, 3 units or more, the county essentially requires stormwater management. So, they may allow you to phase it potentially, depending on how you want to go, but there will be some required of that. And then obviously I'm assuming the sanitary systems will be on the individual units themselves.
yeah, I don't know, I don't think I printed one off, but there was one that says Alex Homestead Development, so all of those would be on their own
Sanitary.
private water
Yeah.
treatment system.
They all have their own well as well?
Correct.
Alex, is any of that property around this proposed condo, is any of it farmed?
That's around, for which one?
The condo,
The whole space that whole area is farmed currently.
oh, is?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the neighbor to the right, the Olsons, that's a managed forest land, up a little bit.
Oh,
south.
this?
Nope, down,
This.
yep, the square one, that's managed forest land, and then, yeah, that other area is, farmed above it.
But you don't farm it,
No,
you just rent it out?
yeah.
It's got 998 in the middle of the hole, and then 998 is on the very far left.
It's the tax key is 998003.
What is this 998 way over here in the left bottom corner?
Oh, that's the, so these are just abbreviated tax keys essentially. So you're missing
They're
some numbers.
truncated.
Yeah.
So our parcel includes that rectangle one and then the square one, 997, but they're
Yeah.
separate tax keys.
They are different tax keys.
But essentially that second tax key doesn't offer anything for the development.
Right, there's a tiny little bit, but
So Mike, you're proposing one building per lot in here, is that?
Correct, yeah, so that's why I kind of described it as, to everybody else, if they were looking at it, they would think that it's a subdivision. All of the setback requirements and building sizes would be based on the zoning code for, if it ends up being RRD5. So essentially, each one of those lots would then be governed by, correct, Sean?
units.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the condo term. And when the street goes in, it would be managed by them and not the village.
Yeah, so side yard setbacks, where, building heights, all of those requirements that we have in RRD5 would apply to each of those units individually.
They'd function just like lots, but they would be units
How
with a
is
big
this
lot.
different than a subdivision then?
Because, one, it'd be a private road, and
Well,
so,
that's all the condo association would be responsible for is the road.
and any other common areas. that would
Garbage,
be-
refuse and recycling.
Yeah, garbage, right. What it allows them to do essentially is have their own private road. And so we don't allow that otherwise in the village. We don't allow private roads. We allow, every new lot that's created has to be on a public road. Since this is just one big lot with different condo units on it, they don't have to do a public road. It's their own enclave essentially.
Shot has
Yeah,
my sister-in-law.
yes. There's a few, yeah,
The village or city?
the village.
I think
City may, but I've approved 3 or 4 of these in the village.
Oh, really?
it might be the city.
How do we get access to it then?
So so it will have frontage on a public road, but this private road will be built to public road standards, and in the condominium documents, they'll grant access to the village for emergency services, et cetera.
Driving on it, you can't tell.
Yeah, it'll look just like a public road.
Yeah, so something like this, we show the cul-de-sac, that cul-de-sac bulb would match the requirements that it would be for a public road, for, fire access and that.
Is there 66 feet along the south lot line there? Is that for public road?
You would have to
You'd have
establish.
to, you'd have to bring in a public road to a point that this new lot, this,
Yeah, but Mike, don't you just have 33 feet on your property?
We don't even have 33 feet. There's a point. If you look, the curve of county line, there's,
oh, let's look at that, yeah, that's a good point. So this little box here essentially was a dedicated 33 feet piece of right-of-way, you're right.
correct.
You have that now?
That's what was established with the, when we.
I had one of
CSN.
those.
Well, yeah, and it's similar
Yeah.
to like Hydrowax, how they have that little bulb that then goes to the left to Miller and then to the right to the neighboring property.
Yeah, so Dan makes a good point though, is that how do we get a public road? Because we have to, that new lot has to have, unless that lot isn't, if you don't divide it off and you leave it just part of.
That whole parcel is, you're entering the parcel from that point.
Right,
the-
so what I'm saying is a public road requires 66 feet of right-of-way. You're not gonna be able to get that, because you don't own this property, you don't own this property. You won't get 66 feet of right-of-way to bring a public road onto this property. So that might preclude you from creating a separate lot. If you just leave it all as one lot, and then leave the conditional use alone, and have these condo units as part of the overall lot, you could avoid that. Otherwise, I don't know how to get a public road through there.
I'm sorry, I'm not following that.
If you don't divide this property into 2 lots, right? So the lot with the event barn and bed and breakfast.
So extend lot 1 and then have,
You're not gonna be able to get a public road through this 33 feet of right of way. So the only way you create the second lot with these condo units on it is to get a public road
They're
so
all-
it can
the-
front.
lot 1 is part of the condo association as well. So that's why there are 8 lots total.
So
one of
it's
which-
just a unit then, it's not a lot.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
I was
that-
using those interchangeably and,
Yeah,
correct. So
so
that's why
that's why it's
the
good to-
association has 8 units, one of which is.
Okay, so then this whole lot already has frontage on a public road. This is a existing lot.
33 feet.
I know, but what I was concerned about is if he was creating a new lot out of this and a new lot out of this, they wouldn't both have access, at least access onto a public road. We can't get any more access than 33 feet as it stands now. They're not looking to create any new lots. The only time that requirement comes into play is when you create a new lot. They're not doing that, so it wouldn't matter. Does that make sense? They're only creating new condo units. That requirement to be on a public road only is triggered when you create a new lot. The code says all new lots shall be located on a public road for a distance of this and this. And they're not creating a new lot, it's a moot point. So thanks for the clarification. And then that was a good question, Dan, because I was concerned.
Since they're not considered lots, can each one be on a smaller footprint where they're able to keep more of that land
They
available
could,
for farming?
if it goes by RRD5, it could be as small as 20,000 square feet, is as small as you can go. So it's up to, they could, but, there's not a ton of
I don't know, like
farmland here.
lots are 6, 7, and 8. Is that all tillable?
Yeah, so,
Now-
yep, the faint line that you see that kind of cuts along the lot line, or the unit lines, is tillable. So the farthest north is just above the number 3, where it has that node that kind of, jumps north. And then to the right, it has another little node that jumps to the east. What has happened is over time, the wetlands have encroached from the managed forest land out into it, where it used to be square. I mean, you'd be amazed to see what that looks like historically back to the 1940s or whenever they started the aerials.
Yeah, so you could make smaller footprints and keep more land available for farming.
Correct, yep.
Yeah, you also wouldn't need to go, you know, that road's gonna be expensive, obviously. If you shorten that road up and maybe even, you know, bring everything a little further south, I don't know if that's what you wanna do or not, but. I mean,
Yeah, and the main goal is to keep that buffering, to have it so that when you're coming down County Line or Halverson, yes, you'll see lot 1, which will kind of look barn-esque, but then you wouldn't even know that those other, you know, properties exist because it would be buffered by that pasture land and kind of that. My goal would be to be able to actually farm some of it ourselves. With the footprint now and the other workloads that we have, that's not possible, but.
So would it be possible, at least for, let's say, 6, 7, and 8, to, you know, to save as much of the farmland as possible, or get adjacent to the wetland and just maybe make those smaller, or is that not?
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is delineations will have the say in that too. This is to get a general idea of, kind of spatially.
Mhm.
But no, I don't ever foresee that being every part of those manicured green lawn space,
Yeah.
and even maintaining them as ag.
The other thing is that a lot of these are, you know, obviously crudely drawn boxes, just for conceptual purposes. Keeping the wetlands out of those units to the most possible that we can is also beneficial.
Yeah, and
Part-
that's where
part
I
of
think
common
the
areas.
lot size will come into play, where those lots, if they exclude those
Right.
types of environmental corridor and those items, will get smaller to kind of meet that.
Yeah, I'd rather see smaller footprint and more available for farming, where you're keeping the rural atmosphere.
And that's our hope too.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments about this?
Mario, how does the place look? Is it Janet that lives there?
Yeah.
And it's in the village of Waukesha?
I think it's the city because their taxes are so high.
Good one.
They have big lots?
They're not big.
You know what road it's on?
I don't even remember.
Have you seen these, Dan?
Barnett
Think
is
so.
next to it.
In Pewaukee.
It's off of Center Drive. Center Drive, just south of, not just south, half mile south of Skyway, something like that.
Whatever happened to the one there was discussion about going in off a national?
Sidello, they never came back.
I've talked to him recently. They're changing their concept up a little bit. They've also purchased the property next door, so they're
Okay.
revising some
I
things.
kind of remember something like that, wanting to go in and, well, some
That wasn't
disappeared, yeah.
condos though, that was just rental duplexes and in the new multifamily zoning district, right?
But
So-
similar in a lot of ways in that there's multiple dwellings and multiple units
Yeah.
on
On
a
one lot.
The only difference is the ownership of them and how that works. So I assume you'll be back at some point with a rezoning request and a condo plat.
Yeah, and so the goal of this was to field any questions, make sure that we have all of your concerns so that we can do things like you said, do the rezone, get the preliminary condo plat. And I guess I'll just say that sitting on in that chair, and then this one, that is something, that's why, you know, having this discussion is helpful to us, because you can go so far with your due diligence. You know, I'm not gonna have a surveyor come out and, you know, plot everything, or people come and delineate, you know, 120 acres without knowing, hey, this is something that we kind of at least vetted a little bit. So that's kind of a testament. Sean, thank you for, like I said, bringing it. And it's helpful to go down the correct path so we're not, you know, spinning our wheels. I guess the other question that I would have is, for the waivers, for unit one, I'll stop using the word lot, for unit one, is that something that is of concern, or
You're talking about for additional building?
additional buildings to make sure that we're not, you know, eliminating the ability for us to make those, similar to like when we did the Edgewood with, hey, I think at some point we're probably gonna want a, you know, outhouse here or a bathroom here. We don't have, you know, drawings of what it is or the exact plotted location, but you know that that's something that we can, you know, have at least the staff level to be able to say, we can move forward with it. Any thoughts on that?
Well, unit one would be technically a 30-acre area if it was its own lot, which technically it isn't, because it's just all one lot.
It is all one lot. The
Yeah.
requirement's 20-acre lot for that, for event barn to be on. So it will be on still a very, very large lot. It still has, that conditional use also has a boundary that's
Meets the
defined.
bounds.
That'll remain as well, so.
How many buildings are on the site now, Mike?
Right now, there's obviously the primary residence, then there's a detached garage, the main barn, which is 3,800 square feet, roughly footprints, these are all footprints. The hitching barn, which is the old horse barn, which is just over 1,600. A chicken coop that's just under 800. The original granary building, just 645, and hog barn. So the total existing area footprint is just 8,376, roughly.
And so that's all part of a conditional use. However, the permit has language that allows you to modify, you know, to approve changes to the site plan with new buildings if you don't think it's going to impact the conditional use anymore.
And this,
those
I would
aren't-
put in language that it would be not part of the conditional use. If you look at so language to state additional buildings not to be used for issued event barn CU. Because the event barn CU only allows for buildings that were established before, I don't even know the date, but the date of when that language was drafted. So
Right.
the intention is that this would be just for our personal use.
Mike, you're really gonna have a hog farm?
Hog farm? No.
Oh. Says it.
No, there's a hog, it's the hog barn.
Oh.
Yeah,
Historically, the hog barn.
historically the hog barn.
So with the number of units on the property already, is it gonna be a problem adding another?
It's not a problem, it just requires a waiver. So it just requires a waiver for the number and then the total square footage.
What we did in the past is we repurposed an old farm that was not being used for agriculture into an event barn.
Right.
And now we're seemingly trying to get back into agriculture. Would that be allowed?
It's still agricultural
It's still,
zone.
I mean, you can use it, yeah, it's ag zoning, so. So the conditional use permit allows the event barn and bed and breakfast, but it doesn't prohibit otherwise permitted uses per the zoning district.
Well, what we're building is a horse barn. We kind of admitted already that the farm was out of business. We're not gonna be using it for.
The barn, you're correct, the barn was repurposed, but define, Dan, what a farm is. Is a farm the buildings or the land? And I guess that's where I think,
Well, the buildings there were existing, you didn't add
Correct.
anything to it.
yeah.
So, that's all. I
So
got.
farming never ceased on the land. It's been rented out since 1959 to various farmers. But yeah, it's always been farming.
So are we asking for a rezoning on it now to RRD5 on the entire property?
We don't have, the way I'd probably do it essentially is in concert with the condo plat, I'd probably just do the units that are gonna be changing and leave so we'd have to, otherwise we'd have to open the conditional use permit back up if we're changing the zoning on it. Leave the event barn zone ag and then zone the other units 1 through whatever they're gonna be, or 2 through whatever, to RRD5. So the total lot would have 2 different zoning districts, but they'd follow the condo lines.
still confused on this access, Paul, I don't.
Well, it just needs a private access, and so a private road, you know,
The throat of a subdivision is still one out, one in general. You know, sometimes you'll have a turn lane. So that would be established at the throat of where our development would start. So that throat would still have, you know, adequate access for, you know, similar to a public road.
and it would open up immediately once you're past that 33 feet.
Correct.
It might be something worth discussing with the village engineer and DPW too, just to make sure that
Mhm.
it's not gonna be a concern.
What is the condo plat gonna consist of, Sean? Is that showing these lots?
It'll show all the units 1 through 8 on it, and it'll show the common areas, it'll show the private road as a common area.
We approve a home to be built on lot 2 here. What assurance do we have that the rest of it's gonna be developed?
We don't, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that happens often if you think, I don't know if they had to come in for it, but the Maney property off of, the Kelsey, I believe they had theirs, they had, I think, 4 lots that they split off that had gone on and off the market, and until they sell, it's just farmland.
Yeah.
But if they were to sell it, then all of a sudden, you know, now you've got a residential use.
Right, it'll be, for to start, it'll be unit 2 with the 1 home on it and just a driveway access. And if it never goes beyond that, then the condo plat exists, but doesn't change how the property is used, doesn't have to change anything. Just like a subdivision plat that gets approved and nothing ever gets built, and it continues in farming forever.
But at least you got the right of way to those existing lots, those lots that.
Well, the right of way, the private road will be established as part of the condo plat.
Right.
It's gonna show that as a common area on the condo plat.
But how do we get 66 feet of, right of way? How is that lot number 2 gonna have access to the right of way?
Well, it's not gonna have
Public
access,
road.
it's not gonna have access to 66 feet of right of way, but we're not creating a new lot. We're only creating condo units, and so the private road will just come off of it. So the question, again, I'd like to talk to the village engineer and have DPW weigh in, is whether or not that eventual private road coming through that 66 feet of right of way, if that's, you know, that 33 feet of right of way is a concern.
But that's nothing, Mike, that the DPW maintains or plows or anything?
No, actually, Waterford, I believe, does county line.
Oh, do they?
Oh,
Okay.
The alternative, you know, the flip side would be to acquire a corner of the neighbor's property to ensure 66 feet.
And that would just check a box.
That would check a box to get you your 66 feet, if that's something we want to require.
Sean, explain to me, since these are condos and the land, like if they go to sell, in the future, they're gonna sell the condo?
Just the unit.
Just a unit,
Yeah.
there's no land involved? it's
The
just-
unit and their interest in the common areas are what they sell.
The land, but I get, is the question, are they buying just the structure or the land as well?
Yeah, there's no land to be bought
Yeah.
with that.
Yes,
It's just-
so it's the meats and bounds, it's the description of land, it'll be, you could have a survey done
Yeah.
of your unit similar to a normal standalone subdivision.
They would sell
lot.
it, so you bought number 7. You're buying this piece of property and the house on it, and you sell it the same way.
And you own
sell
a
it
pro
just-
rata share of the common elements and limited common elements.
Just exactly like a lot that's created, but it's just called something different.
Okay.
I like the fact that we don't have to plow it.
And there's a condo association versus a typical homeowners association that you have in other subdivisions.
And then the way that the condo association would be established would be the developer would be the owner of Unit 1, and Unit 1 owns the interest in any other units until they would be sold.
Oh, that's how you're gonna set up, is Unit 1 owns it all until.
They would be called the developer, yeah.
Dan, you said you saw these in Pewaukee?
I know there's a condominium development there that has a private road that services all, there's many condos in there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, in the village of Waukesha, we did Pebblebrook Hollow, which is off of Oakdale, single-family condo development. Legend of Mill Hills Golf Course
Oh,
has
yeah.
a single-family condo
But
development.
they don't own the land, right? Romero Hills is?
Legend of Merrill Hills did a condo plat, and the owners buy the unit, just like this.
But they don't own the land, do they? They do?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they didn't own it.
No, they own land. And there's also Gemstone Farms, which is a small 4-unit single-family condo development. So those are the last, we did those the last 3 or 4 years in the village of Waukesha. Exactly the same thing.
And oftentimes the reason for doing something like this would be to increase the density of it, where, you know, we could ask for zoning. If this were being developed purely for development sake, you'd probably try and go for higher density. Across the street in Waterford, I think they have 1 acre, I don't know what they call it, suburban something density, but the thought is that that's developable land that they see as potential. So I would like to, like we've said, maintain that agricultural use for it, and obviously we have our business that we run there as well, that being a good neighbor is, you know, a big part of what we do, and we want to maintain both of those, kind of a symbiotic relationship, for lack of a better word.
And just, sorry, last question for you. And the reason you don't want to just do a traditional development with a public road?
Flexibility of development. We're not going to get all 6, hopefully my wife's not, we're not going to get all 6 kids to live on site. But that being the case, I want to plan as if we were able to. So flexibility of development, also something as simple as financing, going the condo plat route doesn't upset that apple cart with our current ownership structure.
Would Joy's parents be interested? I know you said your parents are.
They actually, if you zoom out a little bit, her mom lives a couple of streets down.
Oh, does she?
Or a couple of buildings down, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
On County Line Road?
On Helverson.
God, you guys have built-in babysitters.
Yeah, it was a godsend once. Surprise.
So we'll follow up discussion on the access and the 33 feet, and we'll get that sorted out and clarify that. Okay.
And then I guess my next step would be to also request those waivers all at the same time. Again, just because I don't want to have to, I want to plan accordingly.
So you'd be requesting a site plan of operation amendment and the waivers for that. And we, because the conditional use has a site plan associated with it, that's what you'd be amending, the site plan associated with the conditional use, if the plan commission felt that it didn't impact the conditional use itself, which would require a public hearing. So we want to avoid the public hearing.
Yeah, I'm just concerned I don't, because I have a feeling that legal will say new buildings in the event barn language, you can't utilize.
That we wouldn't be using as part of the event barn.
But it would be in the BSO of,
you can't put anything on that site without a site plan amendment. You can't build new buildings on it without a site plan.
but not a BSO.
What's a
That's a
BSO?
BSO.
Building site operation.
Oh, yeah, we don't call them that, we just call them site plan of operation.
So it would be, so if the event barn didn't exist,
Then if it was
then
just,
it would just be.
yeah, if you didn't have a business out there as the event barn as a conditional use, it would just be an accessory building with a waiver. But because it's on the parcel, that's part of the conditional use, that whole thing has a site plan associated with it.
Gotcha. And then that would just kind of be, basically would be calling it out as an exclusion, for lack of a better word, since it's not going to be part of the operation.
Well, it'd be modifying the site plan if the plan commission finds that it doesn't impact the conditional use itself, and then we would have a caveat as part of the approval that it can't be part of
Gotcha.
the operation.
Gets confusing.
It's a lot, I mean, this property's a lot, everybody knows it's a lot.
Any further questions by the Plan Commission, Village Board?
No.
Michael, you have any other questions?
Nothing that Sean and I can't work through, I think, with that direction.
Sounds good. Moving on to minutes, Wednesday, February 12th. You got the corrected version in front of you. Is there a motion from Plan Commission to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Trustee Newman,
Second.
second by Mario. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Motion.
abstain, I should say,
Okay, with one abstention.
wasn't here.
That'd be a good reason.
All right, moving on to Village Board. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the Wednesday, February 12th, 2025
Motion made
planning
by,
commission meeting.
motion made by Trustee Finch, second by Trustee Pecca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. You had other minutes listed in the,
Oh, I just wanted you to see how awful they are. You got the agenda and it's nothing, so it'll be, we're working on them.
Also, the rest of them are still in progress. I thought they were gonna approve these.
No, work in progress, guys.
Okay.
all right, is there a motion from Plan Commission to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Dan, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes unanimously. Village Board, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Trustee Finch, second by Trustee Pecca. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, motion no. We are adjourned. Thank you.